Thank you so much. I am so pleased that I was asked to do this. You know, there's really too many actors, and God knows there's too many producers, but I will never say there are too many writers. The more, the merrier. But I'm so delighted and privileged to be here tonight to honor the inimitable Linda Bloodworth Thomason. Her lengthy and varied career includes being creator, writer, and producer of shows like 12 Miles of Bad Road, Lime Street, Women of the House, Filthy Rich, Hearts of Fire, Evening Shade, and a little show called Designing Women. A lot of people don't know this, but at the height of our show, Linda decided to take a bunch of her money and very quietly and without fanfare do something for the girls in her hometown of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. To date, the Designing Women Foundation has sent more than 175 deserving young women to college. As well as provide tours of Europe and Broadway. And also through this program, she even convinced 51 high school graduates to read the 100 greatest books ever written. And here's a few more details you may not know about Linda, but even if you do, they're worth repeating. This is the woman who cartwheeled across the stage the night we shot our first episode, who wrote the first 2 seasons of our show by herself in longhand on a legal pad, who, after losing her mother to AIDS from a blood transfusion, wrote an exquisite episode about the stigma a young gay AIDS sufferer endured. And who also wrote lines like, "Charlene's the kind of girl who would have dated Lee Harvey Oswald in high school." That means. She's also written speeches for a couple of interesting individuals named Bill and Hillary Clinton. But one monologue, however, will go down in television history. It was delivered brilliantly by the late, gorgeous Dixie Carter. And it goes something like this, and feel free to join in for the last line. And apologies, Dixie. Here we go. "Marjorie, you probably didn't know that Suzanne was the only contestant in Georgia pageant history to sweep every category except congeniality, and that is not something the women in my family aspire to anyway. Or that when she walked down the runway in her swimsuit, 5 contestants quit on the spot. Or that when she emerged from the isolation booth to answer the question, 'What would you do to prevent war?' she spoke so eloquently of patriotism, battlefields, and diamond tiaras, grown men wept. And you probably didn't know that Suzanne was not just the Georgia, Miss Georgia. She was the Miss Georgia. She didn't twirl just a baton. That baton was on fire. And when she threw that baton into the air, it flew higher, further, faster than any baton has ever flown before, hitting a transformer and showering the darkened arena with sparks. And when it finally did come down, Marjorie, my sister caught that baton, and 12,000 people jumped to their feet for 16.5 minutes of uninterrupted thunderous ovation as flames illuminated her tear-stained face. And that, Marjorie, just so you will know, and your children will someday know, is the night the lights went out in Georgia."
I want to thank Jean for that. I'll explain why I'm stumbling around a little bit. I haven't been drinking. I hope that I asked Jean if she would do this tonight, because well, you just don't have to pay attention to this. I'll try to be discreet, but think about something else. She hasn't been able to find any work since Designing Women. And I just thought, you know, if you could just chat her up tonight, maybe have a small part, she'd really appreciate it. We called her the actress on the show, and I'll tell you, it was a joy to see her every week. And if we had anything serious, even Hal Holbrook, who I consider one of the greatest actors in the world, we'd almost have to call an ambulance for him, because she just broke everyone's heart. And there's nothing comedic that she doesn't just devour and make so memorable forever. So thank you. I'm so honored, Jean, that you did this tonight. You'll have to bear with me. A few months ago, I had an ocular occlusion in my eye, which sounds pretty sexy, but it's not. And so I don't see out of this eye anymore, but I'm fine. But I'm still kind of stumbling around, falling off curbs, which is why I did not pick it. And I did not really write a letter to the Guild. I always intended to, but when our wonderful president, Meredith, called me, I told my husband, I'm getting kicked out of the Guild for not picking him. And he said, why would the president of the Guild call to kick you out? I said, that's very complimentary. That's an honor. Anyway, thank you, Meredith, for this totally unexpected honor, and I am humbled by it. I did not expect it. I'm going to try to read this because I was going to have a light on the podium, and I don't. And so what I've been doing at the table, they enlarged I realized on the way over here, the print was too small. So I'm going to do my best just to read this. And so first of all, I have to thank Paddy Chayefsky, because unbelievably, we have a past. A number of years ago, I was hearing that, and I admired him so much. I was hearing that a lot of writers were after the rights to network for Broadway, and I thought, well, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring. There's no way I'm going to get this. And so a few weeks later, Paddy's son called and said he had been to Paddy's grave, and that Paddy said, give the rights to Linda. I know, insane, right? I can't explain it. I had to give them back because I had a scheduling conflict with something else. But I couldn't imagine that this, this son of Russian Jewish immigrants, grew up in New York, wanted to give the rights to this little cheerleader from the Ozarks. And he still seems to be shilling for me because here I am today getting this award. So thank you, Paddy. And, I hope that he keeps it up. I have to thank Mary Kay Place, the amazing actress who was my writing partner. And I want to thank Norman Lear and Larry Gelbart and James L. Brooks, who were our incredible mentors. My assistant, Alan Crow, without him, been with me for 35 years. I, could not even be here today without him. I have to thank Fran Bascom, who brought me all those delicious people you just saw on the screen. And then I also, and let me just get to this page, I think I can see this. I told them not to do the teleprompter because I was afraid I couldn't read it. I do want to talk about my family a little bit because I definitely would not be a writer without them. So let me just get to that. I just did Fran. So I grew up in this little town in Poplar Bluff, which I don't know where you got that picture, but that's pretty accurate what it looks like. So there are all these men from there, my family, and there are 5 charismatic, progressive-minded life revelers in my childhood in this little town. They're all lawyers. My grandfather, who was shot by the KKK for his defense of black people in court, and they had a sundowner law when people couldn't get home and they were black people, they were in trouble, so they all spent the night at his house. And he was eventually shot in the chest for that, and he survived. But he raised his 4 sons with his own values, and they all put themselves through law school by playing poker. So I think I'm just going to have to finish this on my own because I'm really having trouble seeing it. But my Uncle Charles was a judge advocate at Nuremberg. My dad was a Japanese war crimes prosecutor. They were the most interesting people I've ever known, and they just kind of took me under their tutelage. They gave me my first canoe when I was 8, and they said, you can out-race any boy on the river. And I'm still paddling that canoe today. They loved feisty women. They loved women who talked back. They loved, and women who caused a little bit of trouble, or a lot of trouble. And they are really the forebearers of designing women in all of my shows. So I would ride my bike every day to the courthouse to see my dad defend murderers and thieves. He refused to let us join the country club because blacks and Jews couldn't belong. My mother said it was also because he didn't want to pay the dues. But I'm going to try to get back into this now. I don't know what happened to the light up here, but it's hard to read this. Okay, so he openly endorsed the war he openly opposed the war in Vietnam. And he cried the day Martin Luther King died. And there were a number of people in my town who did a little dance. So I was glad to be the daughter of that man. My relatives did not march in Selma, but they stood up. And most importantly, these glorious men taught me really everything I know about the world. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to just take everything I got from them and transfer their ether to the soundstage in Burbank, stage 26, where all of these Jean Smart and Annie Potts and Delta Burke and Dixie were all waiting, and they basically and deliciously trafficked in that ether for the entire series. But the designing women were really these men. I want to talk about, well, let me just say this. They loved the English language. They were big raconteurs. They argued about everything, religion, politics, and that also ended up in all of my shows. And so progressive Southerners kind of became my wheelhouse. And I wanted to be a writer because I never saw any of them on TV. I saw Hee Haw and Beverly Hillbillies. And even today, you know, it's generally tall-haired evangelists who are money-grubbing people or crystal meth labs. And by the way, it's not a slam to Ozark. I loved Ozark. But I wanted to see the people, you know, the progressive, smart Southerners that I knew. And so that's why I started writing that. And I think that these people really are the key to any rapprochement that we might have in our divided country right now. I found that, and after living in Hollywood and New York for after living in Hollywood for so long, there's not that much difference. We're really just New Yorkers in a good mood. I want to thank my husband, Harry Thomason, who's here with me today. He directed so many of my favorite shows, and we've had a rip-roaring adventure. He's given me the biggest adventures of my life. We've had 2 presidential inaugurations and 3 conventions and the campaigns. We had 101 nights in the White House, a lot of incoming, very interesting, and a really deep friendship. And we were proud to be kind of the wingmen for wing people for our dear friends. We've had thousands of days on Hollywood sound stages together, and you know, it's not over yet, God willing and Paddy willing. So I just thank you so much for this. It means the world to me. As I've said, it was very unexpected, and I think by honoring me, you have honored my forebears and all the progressive Southerners. There are millions across the South. And I hope in the future we will see more of these people on television. So thank you, darling Jean, again, and thank you all very much for honoring me. Bye-bye.